Welcome to the Authentic Dentist Podcast. Join Dr. Allison House of House Dental in Scottsdale and Shawn Zajas, founder of Zajas, as they lead dentists deeper along the journey of authenticity to reach greater fulfillment in their professional lives and to deliver remarkable patient experiences.
So, Shawn Zajas and Dr. Allison House with the Authentic Dentist Podcast. And we are in our new studio.
I'm so excited. I love it. It looks so good.
We were just talking. It's been over 5 years.
5 years. And we started out in my office with a tiny little microphone. And here we are. It's something to celebrate.
Yeah. I'm just, I'm really thankful. I just really appreciate that every single time it's been like we just jump off and embrace the new kind of as a team. So thank you. Thank you, Allison.
I think that's just the way life is. You got to try things. And sometimes they worked and sometimes they didn't. But I think we've learned a lot. So today I wanted to talk about the power of moments. And I wanted to do that because Olivia Reeves just won the gold in Paris for Olympic weightlifting. And you know, I'm into Olympic weightlifting. And so Mark and I went to a gala in 2021 for the athletes to celebrate them going to Tokyo. And it was a big deal. I mean, we went to the Colorado Springs at the museum and it was amazing. So Mark called to ask what we're doing for the athletes this year after Olivia won the gold. And the answer was nothing. Nothing. And he and I were just floored by that. You know, you have to celebrate these moments. And this is a big moment. You know, nobody's won the gold in Olympic weightlifting since like 2000, 2001. So it's been a good amount of time. So we need to celebrate her. So we're going to have a gala. And I guess Mark and I are going to help put it on with sponsors. And all the athletes that competed are going to come. And it just got me thinking that so often we don't acknowledge people. You know, they do something amazing and we just sort of we just expect it out of them. And there's no acknowledgement. And The Power of Moments is a book by, I believe it's Adam Grant, that talks about how, we need to remember when somebody does something special for you or when somebody does something amazing, that we need to acknowledge that moment because it's a moment in your life.
So isn't there something similar by Chip and Dan Heath?
Yes.
So it's one of those.
It's one of those. I've read so many. I guess it's a good thing, right? I've read a lot of books lately.
What I think about is that not only, I don't know, I feel like maybe it's that we don't slow down enough to actually acknowledge, honor, like you said, celebrate. And I know it's like if I look in the mirror, gosh, I don't do that for myself at all because it's like next. What was it? What kind of is your take on the reason why?
I mean, it takes time, it takes money, and sometimes we don't want something to be all about us. But the reality is, especially for weightlifting, this isn't all about Olivia. This is about a whole collective of people that got her there. So it's important to acknowledge it. You know that I'm going to be president of the Central Arizona Dental Association. And I'm very excited about that. It's our local Phoenix. And I called a bunch of people in town and just asked them about, their feelings about it and why they aren't involved anymore. And one of the things they said is that they didn't feel acknowledged for the time and effort that they spent. And that's important. People need to be at least thanked for their time. And it wasn't like a 4-year commitment. Maybe it was a 6-month commitment. But still, I mean, they spent time, they spent money, they spent, creating something for the association. And then we didn't thank them, which is just an oversight because we do it in all of our lives. But I thought that was really important. We need to start doing that.
I wonder how, as we lean into thanking and appreciating, I'm guessing maybe they gave practical things of how do we recognize that these moments? Now it's easy with the gold medal. It's like, well, you did something that
amazing. Yes.
Yeah. That people train a whole lifetime for and still don't get. There's so very few that ever reach that. That's like the top of Everest, which I think actually means less than it did.
I think it does too.
Even 20 years ago, you see those photos where there's hundreds of people lined up and, because they wait for that one time when they have a chance to summit it. So it's practically, was there something that the book was saying? Okay, sorry, not practically, what do we do? But how do we know we're kind of in one of those moments? Because I think often we're just so good at kind of going on to the next thing that like, when do you stop and say, this is something we need to celebrate?
So it's marking your life. And when you do something big, it should be acknowledged. Mark wrote a book last year and it was a nightmare. Everybody wants to write a book, don't really want to write a book. It was 150 hours of his time. It was crazy. Anyway, he wrote a book and then he had it published and it was just like, that was the end. So we needed to have a book launch. And that's because it's a moment. It's a moment. It's a picture. And it's just a moment that you're going to mark in your life where you look back 20 years from now and say, hey, I accomplished this. This was exciting. And he had 2 associates that worked with him on this book. So yeah, this was a big moment in their career, especially. Not so much in Mark's career, but especially in somebody who's 30, their career. So yeah, I think that you have to look back and just say, yeah, what have people done for you that needs a thank you? Because people need that acknowledgement, even if it's sort of expected. And yeah, how are you marking your time so that when you look back in 20 years, you remember that you did something exciting in your life, or your wife did, or your kids did. We celebrate kids' birthdays until they're like, what, 18? And then it's not really important anymore. Or maybe 21 is important. But, you need those acknowledgments. And sometimes all of those acknowledgments happen before you're 30. Your wedding, you have a child, and then for the rest of your life, there's no acknowledgments.
Okay. So on a really small level, as you're saying this, I'm reminded I'm in like a kind of a small group mastermind, and the person leading it every single Sunday reaches out and says, hey, what are 3 wins and kind of something you struggle with this week? And the way that they kind of prompt you and encourage you to find these things out is just by going on your phone and scrolling through your photos.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how many times I think, well, I'm capturing it. I'm taking a photo. It's a moment that mattered to me, but then I don't actually see it again. I don't put it in front of me. I don't reflect on it. And all of a sudden I'm looking back just on the last week and I'm like, oh my God, I kind of forgot about that. That was really special. And then it prompts me to be like, oh, talk to my son or my daughter or my wife, and even just lean into those little moments. I think I'm cataloging it because I did what you're supposed to do. I took the picture. But like, how many pictures do we not actually realize we've taken that symbolize these moments?
We can't help but think about how different it is to take a picture with my phone and how we used to take pictures with cameras. And so at least you had a physical reminder. There's a picture on your wall, or there's a picture in a book somewhere. And now in my phone, I have to be very intentional to go back and look. So it's easier to take a picture, but it doesn't seem to have the same memory, which is not good.
Well, so this might be a little different, but I was listening to a podcast and he was talking about like the memification of everything and how the Mona Lisa was like sacred and was archivable at that time. But like right now, when things happen that could be significant, we just instantly make a meme of them, but then we kind of just move on. Like it's almost like the idea of what is sacred and what is worthy of archiving. It's harder because of just the pace and how much new information that like it's hard for good art to transcend and become great art, almost like the Mona Lisa. And it goes right back to what you were saying about even the ease of taking a photograph. Before it costs something. It's like, okay, well, I have 8 or 10 Polaroids or whatever. Or back then, like if I actually need to develop the film,
There's a whole process.
There's a whole cost. So it's like, if you're going to step in that direction, you're being very selective about the moments that you're wanting to capture. Now we so flippantly take out our phone to just take pictures here and there. That's probably also the same flippancy with which we look back and review them, because it's like, oh, there's thousands of them. It almost is like, which part of that is sacred? And I think that's probably why the book is so important now. And this message is important because there are some things in our life that are sacred, that are worthy of archiving. And how do we rest, lean into those, celebrate those, create something around that moment so that it can actually rise above all the rest of the moments we think we're capturing, but we're really not.
The other thing, we've talked about this before, is that when you set goals, you achieve the goal and then you just set a bigger goal. And it's as if you never realized that at one time I wasn't able to do this. The goal is so big. So you and I started this podcast in 2019 and we had a single microphone. And here we are 5 years later. And yet there's all these things that we want, we have these big goals and big ambition for this, but there's not an acknowledgement of, let's see how far we've come. There was a time when we didn't know how to work the microphone. We didn't know how to make a podcast. And here we are, and now we're worried about lighting. So, it's an evolution, and you do need to stop and acknowledge it. There's a moment.
I think acknowledgement just brings life. It's like what you look at enlarges. And if you just keep looking at what isn't yet, sure, it's great for success. It's great for striving. It's great for accomplishing, but it's not great for integrating. And it's like, I don't want the same approach that I've taken of not integrating successes in my life to like bleed into the way I father, where all of a sudden it's like, well, son, daughter, unless you whatever. And yet that's not true at all. As a father, it's like the littlest things. I'm like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. Great job. I'm so vocal. I'm like above and beyond encouraging. And yet that's not my self-talk. Like,
I know we're good parents to our kids, but sometimes we're not good parents to ourselves. It's an interesting phenomenon.
The power of moments. I love that, because again, I feel like it helps us kind of lean into what is important, what is sacred, and just taking the time to say that. Now, did Mark think it was weird when you're like, hey, honey, you did an amazing job. You finished this book. Let's do a launch. Let's kind of commemorate it.
He did not want to do that. He does not like to be the center of attention. And
paradoxically,
I know. But he doesn't really. He likes to do things for other people. He doesn't like to be the center of it. So we needed to make, and that's important when you're talking to somebody, what is it that they want for the acknowledgement? So in his case, I said, these young ladies really need this. It's part of their career. They need the photo op. And so we made it not so much about him, but as about all of them and what they'd contributed to the profession. And it was funny because we rented the top of a bar on the rooftop downtown. It was beautiful, the Palomar. And we invited every lawyer. You wouldn't believe. And I was afraid nobody would show up. Everybody showed up. I finally went home at 9:30 because I was tired. They were still there. It started at 6. I mean, it was amazing. There were lots of people that wanted to be part of something. And that's the other thing. Other people want to be part of something bigger than themselves. So that was a big deal. But no, he didn't want it to be all about him. And some people do. Like my mom is a character. I just love her. So she has a birthday week, not a birthday, a birthday week, because she likes to celebrate her birthday. And when she was a child, her birthday's in August. When she was a child, nobody ever acknowledged her birthday. Her father died when she was young. Her birthday is right beginning of school. And so now she's like, I'm in my 70s. We're going to celebrate. And I love that. But she wants to be celebrated in a different way than, say, my son. My son does not want to party about him. He doesn't have a birthday week. In fact, if you don't ask him, he'll never tell you it's his birthday. But that doesn't mean we don't acknowledge him and we don't do something. His love language is words of affirmation. And so I like to give him a card or something special that just makes it, I remember you, I see you, I love you, and I'm proud of you. But he doesn't want a big party. So it's more than just a big thing every time.
Okay, so here you are. You are Dr. House. You are the authentic dentist. How does this land in your practice? What are moments that maybe might seem insignificant or might be easy to overlook with your team that you've discovered, hey, it's just the little ways of me recognizing or validating? I guess you could say what you do with your even annual retreat kind of at your house, the planning session, is a moment that you create to be like, hey, we're going to get aligned, get on the same page. It then gets infused into your whole culture where it's like, we're in this together. That's a moment you've been incredibly intentional about. But for people out there that might be a dentist or on a team, how can they incorporate this into their practice?
So in my practice, I always think about like moments when you've achieved something. We bought a CEREC. It took the whole team a long time to integrate it into our practice. But the other day, one of my assistants was able to scan and design. She did a beautiful job. And so that was a moment where we had to look back and say, there was a moment we didn't even know how to turn this thing on. We had to call somebody to tell us how to turn it on. And here we are. You just did a whole crown. It's beautiful. So yeah, there's those moments where you have to pay attention to look how far we've come and then make it exciting about them.
Thank you for listening to the Authentic Dentist Podcast. To join Allison and Shawn on this journey, hit the subscribe button to never miss an episode. Here's to your success. Express yourself fully. Live authentic.